Welcome to our deep dive today. We're going to be looking at some pretty intense stuff, the core of military leadership.
Oh, yeah. Definitely intense.
We've got a couple of really fascinating sources here.
Yeah.
The U.S. Army's Field Manual 622, and also their Doctrine publication on leadership. And then from the Marine Corps side, we've got their own guide, Leading Marines.
Yeah.
So clearly we're trying to get beyond the oorah and all that and really understand what makes these branches tick.
Yeah, it's about peeling back the layers, right?
Yeah.
We're not just looking at how they fight,
Right.
but how they build that unshakable esprit de corps
Right.
and prepare their people to lead under pressure.
Yeah, under incredibly intense pressure. And that's something that I think is so interesting because right off the bat, both the Army and Marines consider themselves professions,
Right.
not just jobs.
Yeah.
What do you think the real distinction is there?
Well, the Army's doctrine uses this word stewardship. That, I think, is really powerful. They talk about expertise, yes, but also a responsibility to something far bigger than themselves. It made me think, does your work ever feel like you're entrusted with something that goes beyond a paycheck?
That is a thought-provoking question.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to be mulling that over as we speak. Now, the Marines, they seem to approach this differently, right? They talk about transformation,
Yeah.
almost like they're taking raw clay and sculpting it into a Marine.
That's a great analogy. And there's
Yeah.
that famous anecdote where a mother barely recognizes her son after boot camp because he's changed so much.
Right.
Yeah, it highlights how they build that Marine identity from
Yeah.
the ground up through shared values and training.
So let's talk values then. The Army's got their list of 7.
Okay.
Loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, personal courage.
Right.
It's a lot to unpack.
It is, yeah.
Of all of those, is there one that jumps out at you as especially relevant to how people lead today, even outside the military?
I find myself coming back to integrity again and again.
Okay.
Think about the complex ethical dilemmas people face in business these days. Data, privacy, environmental concerns the pressure to cut corners.
Right.
That value, standing by your principles, even when it's tough, that's timeless.
I like that you picked integrity. It's so easy to pay lip service to values,
Right.
but actually living them, that's the real test. Now, the Marines, they've got their trio,
Yeah.
honor, courage, commitment, short and to the point.
Mhm.
But their material digs a lot deeper into what those words really mean in action, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Take commitment, for example.
Mhm.
The source material shares the story of Lance Corporal Jeffrey Nashton, severely injured in the Beirut bombing. When the commandant visited him, despite his wounds, Nashton managed to write, "Semper Fi," always faithful.
Wow.
That's more than just showing up. It's that profound dedication, even in the face of hardship.
That is a powerful story. Okay, so we've got these values as a foundation, but both branches acknowledge that leadership has to work differently depending on the situation. So how does the Army break down leadership at those different levels?
So they distinguish between direct organizational and strategic leadership. Direct leadership is all about leading small teams that face-to-face interaction, very hands-on.
Okay,
In your world, think of leading a project team
got it.
or mentoring a junior colleague.
Yeah,
It's that everyday leadership we all encounter.
that makes sense. So organizational leadership, does that step back a bit?
Exactly. It's about leading larger groups, coordinating efforts across teams, setting a vision for an entire department, maybe even influencing company policy.
Okay,
Think about someone driving a large-scale initiative
Right.
or managing multiple departments.
got it.
That kind of thing.
Okay, and strategic leadership, that's got to be the big picture stuff, right?
Got it. Strategic leaders are the ones charting the course for entire organizations, managing resources on a massive scale, making decisions that have ripple effects for years to come.
So like CEOs, generals?
Yeah, CEOs, generals,
Yeah.
folks operating at that national or global level.
Okay, that's a pretty clear breakdown. Now, the Marines, I get the sense that while they acknowledge these different levels, their focus is more on the individual Marine's impact.
You're right on the mark. They seem to believe that regardless of rank, every Marine has the potential to lead.
Okay.
Take the story of Corporal Dakota Meyer, a junior Marine who received the Medal of Honor for his actions in Afghanistan. During an ambush, he repeatedly entered a kill zone to rescue comrades,
Wow.
ultimately saving lives.
Talk about courage under fire. That example really underscores the Marines' belief in empowering every individual to step up.
And it all comes back to fostering that deep sense of ownership
Right.
and initiative.
Now, we can't talk about the military without addressing cohesion and esprit de corps, that legendary sense of unity.
Right.
What are some of the key takeaways from our sources on how they build that?
Well, both branches emphasize the power of disciplined units, acting as one. The Army highlights the role of shared hardships, the sense of belonging to something larger than oneself. They want soldiers to be proud of their service and feel connected to a cause greater than themselves, love of country, the Army family, the mission of defending peace.
So it's about forging those bonds through shared experience and a sense of purpose.
Exactly. Now, the Marines, while they echo that sentiment, they also emphasize the transformative power of their training, their rich traditions, and that powerful sense of identity. You know that famous saying, where else should I be? I'm a United States Marine.
Yeah, it really drives home that deep-seated commitment and the feeling that being a Marine is more than just a job. It's who they are.
Precisely. And it's interesting how those elements, the challenging training, the emphasis on tradition, that unwavering sense of belonging, all contribute to building that incredible esprit de corps.
So we've talked about the foundation of values, different levels of leadership, and the importance of building cohesion. But we can't ignore the fact that the world is changing at an incredibly rapid pace. How do these sources address the challenges of leading in this kind of environment?
Well, it's fascinating how they both acknowledge the complexities of the modern world. The Army, for instance, uses this phrase, operating in conditions of uncertainty and ambiguity. Sound familiar?
Oh, absolutely. It feels like every day brings new challenges and unexpected twists, and that old command and control style of leadership just doesn't cut it anymore.
You hit the nail on the head. The Army actually talks about this directly, saying that leaders need to be comfortable operating without all the answers, to be adaptable and innovative, and to empower their teams to make decisions on the fly.
So it's about embracing that uncertainty and finding ways to thrive in chaos.
Precisely. And the Marine Corps highlights something similar. They call it adaptive leadership, the ability to adjust to rapidly changing circumstances, to make decisions with limited information, and to delegate authority to those closest to the action.
It makes you realize that these military leadership principles aren't just about combat. They're incredibly relevant to navigating any complex, fast-paced environment.
Exactly. They're about building the mental agility and resilience to handle whatever curveballs life throws your way.
That's a great point. Now, we've talked about what makes good leadership, but the Army also spends some time defining what they call counterproductive leadership. What are they warning against?
It's a fascinating aspect of their doctrine. They explicitly call out behaviors that can poison a team. Things like favoritism, relying on abusive language, and micromanaging to the point of stifling initiative.
We've all probably encountered some version of this at some point in our careers, right?
Think about it. Have you ever had a boss who played favorites, undermining trust within the team? Or one who micromanaged to the point where you felt completely demoralized?
Ugh, those behaviors create a toxic environment. And it's interesting how the Army not only identifies these pitfalls, but also provides a framework for recognizing and mitigating them.
Right. It's about recognizing that certain actions, even with good intentions, can have a really detrimental impact on morale and performance.
Now, we can't talk about the military without addressing mental and physical toughness. Both sources emphasize this, but in different ways. What are some of the key takeaways?
The Army highlights a truly harrowing example from World War II. The 3rd Battalion, 358th Infantry Regiment. After suffering devastating casualties, they were reorganized into a single company, but still managed to take their objective. It's a testament to their sheer resilience in the face of overwhelming adversity.
Unbelievable. That level of grit is astounding. And it makes me think about the importance of preparation, not just physical training, but also the mental fortitude to keep going when everything seems lost.
You're absolutely right. And the Marines take a really interesting approach to this through their 4 pillars of fitness, mind, body, spirit, and social. It's a holistic view of toughness, recognizing that true strength comes from nurturing all these aspects of yourself.
Okay, so it's not just about being physically strong. It's about having that mental resilience, a strong sense of purpose, and strong social connections to support you. That actually applies to anyone facing high-pressure situations, not just in the military.
I completely agree. They even have a saying that encapsulates this. The more we train in peacetime, the less we bleed in war. It's a reminder that investing in your well-being in all its dimensions is crucial for navigating any challenging environment.
That's such a powerful message. It's been absolutely fascinating to delve into these different facets of military leadership. We've explored their values, their leadership styles, how they build cohesion, and how they adapt to a rapidly changing world.
It's clear that these principles go beyond the battlefield and offer valuable insights for anyone who wants to lead effectively, overcome challenges, and build a strong, resilient team.
And as we move on to part 2 of our deep dive, I'm really curious to see how these concepts play out in specific scenarios and anecdotes from the source material.
I'm with you. Let's keep unpacking this.
It's fascinating how these sources delve into the concept of a profession. The Army really emphasizes that stewardship element we touched on earlier.
Right, like they're entrusted with something far more significant than just a job.
Exactly. There's a passage where they talk about expertise and skill honed through years of training, education, and experience.
Right.
But it goes beyond just individual skills. They talk about answering a calling to honorable service, pursuing lifelong learning, and working together for a common purpose that transcends personal gain.
That's powerful stuff. It's about dedication, commitment, and putting something larger than yourself first.
Yeah.
It makes me think about the parallels in other fields.
Oh, yeah.
Doctors, lawyers, engineers,
Right.
they all have that sense of responsibility to a larger good.
Precisely. And the Marines, while they don't explicitly use the word stewardship, their focus on transformation speaks to a similar idea. Think about that anecdote of the mother barely recognizing her son after boot camp.
It really highlights the power of that shared experience, that sense of belonging to something bigger, and the profound impact of their training and the values they instill.
It's like they're forging a new identity, one rooted in service, honor, and discipline. And this ties directly into how they build esprit de corps. The Army talks about pride in honorable service, defending the American people. They emphasize that sense of belonging to a cause greater than one's self-love of country, the Army family preserving peace.
Right.
So it's about connecting to something larger, finding meaning and purpose in that service.
Yes. And the Marine Corps echoes this sentiment. They talk about that unique transformative training, the emphasis on tradition like the dress blues uniform, and that's saying, where else should I be? I'm a United States Marine.
Right.
It creates a powerful sense of identity and belonging.
Yeah.
It's no wonder they have such strong esprit de corps.
Now, leading in a changing world, that's where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
Both sources acknowledge the challenges, evolving technology, unpredictable enemies, the constant presence of the media. It's a complex landscape.
It is.
And they both stress the importance of adaptability.
Right.
The Army talks about being comfortable with ambiguity, being flexible and innovative.
Yeah.
They even have a section where they talk about soldiers needing to seek situational understanding if they believe an order is unlawful or immoral.
Right.
So it's not just about blindly following orders.
Right.
They are expected to exercise judgment and make tough calls.
Exactly.
That's a huge EE responsibility.
It is.
They're entrusted with incredible power. And that comes with the need to make difficult decisions in challenging situations.
Now, the Marine Corps, they highlight the importance of critical thinking, especially in high-stress situations.
Okay.
They have that great example of dealing with an IED explosion.
Right.
They talk about the need to exercise restraint to gather information before reacting.
Right.
It's about not letting emotions cloud judgment.
It's that pause, that moment of reflection before taking action.
Right.
Which is especially important when the stakes are so high. And this ties into the concept of moral courage, right? They talk about mastering the fear of social consequences, doing the right thing even when it's unpopular or difficult.
Precisely. It's about having the integrity to stand up for your values even when it's hard.
Okay, I'm seeing a pattern here. Both branches emphasize not just following orders, but also thinking critically, adapting to changing circumstances.
Right.
And having the moral courage to do the right thing even under pressure.
And that leads us to another point they both emphasize: physical and mental toughness. The Army had that incredible account of the 3rd Battalion, 358th Infantry Regiment during World War II. After suffering devastating casualties, they were reorganized into a single company.
Wow.
But they still took their objective.
That's a stark reminder of the demands of combat and the importance of mental and physical preparation, a true testament to resilience.
And the Marines, they approach this through their 4 pillars of fitness, mind, body, spirit, and social.
Right.
They have that saying, the more we train in peacetime, the less we bleed in war.
Right. It highlights their commitment to holistic well-being. It's about being prepared not just physically, but mentally and emotionally as well.
Absolutely. And this isn't just for the military. Think about it, no matter what challenges you face in your life, having that mental and physical resilience, that ability to bounce back from setbacks, is essential for success.
Now, we've touched on different levels of leadership, direct, organizational, and strategic, but the Army really dives deep into this, providing clear examples of each.
Right, and it's fascinating to see how these concepts translate to different fields.
Right.
Direct leadership, that's your frontline leadership working directly with small teams, very hands-on.
Okay.
Think of it like a team leader, a supervisor, someone who's guiding and mentoring on a daily basis.
Got it. So organizational leadership steps back a bit, focusing on coordinating efforts across multiple teams. Setting a vision for a larger unit or department, they're thinking more strategically considering the bigger picture. It's more like middle management, department heads, folks responsible for a broader scope.
Exactly. And then you have strategic leadership operating at the highest levels, setting the overall direction,
Right.
managing resources on a massive scale. They're thinking long-term, anticipating challenges, making decisions that impact the entire organization, even beyond. Your CEOs, your generals, people whose decisions have far-reaching consequences.
Okay. I'm seeing how these different levels play out in various organizational structures. Now, the Marines, while they acknowledge these different levels, their emphasis seems to remain on the individual Marine leader's impact, regardless of rank. Like that example of Corporal Dakota Meyer, who received the Medal of Honor for his actions in Afghanistan.
Right. It underscores their belief that leadership can emerge at ANY level. It's about empowering every Marine to step up and lead when the situation demands it. So it's not about your position or rank. It's about your character, your courage, your commitment to the mission.
And this ties back into how we build cohesion and esprit de corps, right? The Army talks about shared hardships, pride in the unit's accomplishments, that sense of belonging to something larger than oneself. It's about creating a sense of shared purpose, a common bond that unites them.
The Marine Corps echoes this sentiment. They emphasize their unique transformative training, their traditions, that unwavering sense of belonging. Remember that quote, "Where else should I be? I'm a United States Marine."
It really captures that deep sense of identity and commitment.
Now, leading in a changing world, that's where things get really interesting. Both sources acknowledge the challenges of evolving technology, unpredictable enemies, the constant scrutiny of the media. It's a complex landscape, and they both stress the importance of adaptability.
The Army talks about being comfortable with ambiguity, being flexible and innovative. They also acknowledge the moral complexities of modern warfare. They have that section where they talk about soldiers needing to seek situational understanding if they believe an order is unlawful or immoral.
Exactly. They're entrusted with incredible responsibility, and that comes with the need to make difficult decisions in challenging situations.
And the Marine Corps, they highlight the importance of critical thinking, especially in high-stress situations.
They have a great example of dealing with an IED explosion. They talk about the need to exercise restraint, to gather information before reacting. It's about not letting emotions cloud judgment.
It's that pause, that moment of reflection before taking action, which is especially important when the stakes are so high.
And this ties into the concept of moral courage. They talk about mastering the fear of social consequences, doing the right thing, even when it's unpopular or difficult.
It's about having the integrity to stand up for your values, even when it's hard.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And both sources stress the importance of physical and mental toughness.
The Army has that incredible account of the 3rd Battalion, 358th Infantry Regiment during World War II, facing devastating casualties, reorganized into a single company, but they still took their objective.
A true testament to resilience. It's a stark reminder of the demands of combat and the importance of mental and physical preparation.
And the Marines approach this through their 4 pillars of fitness, mind, body, spirit, and social. They have that saying, the more we train in peacetime, the less we bleed in war. It highlights their commitment to holistic well-being. It's about being prepared not just physically, but mentally and emotionally as well.
And that's something we can all learn from, right?
Yeah.
No matter what challenges we face, having that mental and physical resilience is essential.
Absolutely. It's about being able to bounce back from setbacks, to keep going, even when things get tough.
You know, the Army is particularly explicit about warning against counterproductive leadership.
Yeah. They lay out those behaviors that can really damage team favoritism, abusive language, micromanaging, to the point where it stifles initiative.
It's about recognizing that certain actions, even if well-intentioned, can have a detrimental impact on morale and performance.
It's so important for leaders to be aware of these pitfalls. We've all probably experienced some version of this in our own careers, right?
Think about it. Have you ever worked under someone who micromanaged to the point of frustration?
Oh, yeah.
Or encountered a leader who played favorites, undermining trust within the team?
Those behaviors create a toxic environment, and it's something that needs to be addressed.
Absolutely. The Army provides a framework for understanding and mitigating these counterproductive behaviors, which is valuable for leaders in any field. Now, when we shift our focus to how these branches approach leadership at different levels, we see some interesting distinctions.
The Army, they have that clear breakdown: direct, organizational, and strategic.
Right, and they give really tangible examples. Direct leadership, think of a squad leader in the field making tactical decisions, motivating their team, ensuring their well-being. It's very hands-on, very immediate.
It's that frontline leadership we see in all sorts of fields. Team leaders, project managers, people who are directly guiding and mentoring others.
Organizational leadership takes on a broader perspective. They're coordinating efforts across multiple teams, ensuring alignment with the overall mission, setting a vision for a larger unit or department. They're thinking more strategically, considering the bigger picture.
So like middle management department heads, folks who are responsible for a larger scope.
Exactly. And then there's strategic leadership operating at the highest echelons, setting the overall course, managing resources on a massive scale. They're thinking long-term, anticipating challenges, making decisions that impact the entire organization, even beyond.
Your CEOs, your generals, people whose decisions have far-reaching consequences.
Now, the Marines, while they recognize these different levels, their emphasis remains on the impact of the individual Marine leader, regardless of rank.
They have that example of Corporal Dakota Meyer receiving the Medal of Honor for his actions in Afghanistan.
It's a great example of how they empower every Marine to lead. It doesn't matter your position. If you see something that needs to be done, you step up and do it.
It's about initiative, courage, taking ownership.
And this approach is woven into their culture. They foster that sense of responsibility and leadership from the very beginning. They want every Marine to feel empowered to think critically, to make decisions.
It's a powerful approach, and it certainly contributes to their effectiveness.
Now, both branches place a heavy emphasis on mental and physical toughness. The Army has that harrowing example of the 3rd Battalion, 358th Infantry Regiment during World War II. They endured devastating casualties, reorganized into a single company, but they still took their objective.
It's an incredible testament to their resilience.
They faced unimaginable challenges, but they persevered, driven by their mission and their commitment to each other.
It really highlights the importance of mental and physical preparation. They were able to push through because they had trained for those kinds of situations.
And the Marines, they approach this through their 4 pillars of fitness: mind, body, spirit, and social. It's a holistic view of toughness.
It's not just about being physically strong. It's about having that mental fortitude, that spiritual grounding, and those strong social connections. They recognize that those elements all contribute to resilience.
They have that saying, the more we train in peacetime, the less we bleed in war. It encapsulates their commitment to preparation, to being ready for any challenge.
And this is a valuable lesson for all of us, isn't it? No matter what field we're in, that mental and physical toughness, that ability to bounce back from setbacks, is crucial for success.
It's about having the strength to keep going, even when things are tough, to adapt to changing circumstances, to learn from our failures and come back stronger.
It's about having that grit, that determination to succeed no matter the obstacles.
And both the Army and Marine Corps provide valuable insights into how to cultivate that toughness, both individually and as a team.
They have developed systems and strategies that are applicable far beyond the military context.
Absolutely. Their approaches to leadership training and building resilience offer valuable lessons for anyone who wants to excel in challenging environments.
Now, one of the things that really stands out in the Army's doctrine is their focus on mitigating what they call counterproductive leadership.
It's really insightful how they explicitly address those behaviors that can damage morale and hinder team performance.
They identify things like favoritism, abusive language, micromanaging to the point where it stifles initiative.
These actions can create a toxic environment, erode trust, and ultimately undermine the team's ability to achieve its goals.
It's so important for leaders to be aware of these pitfalls. We've all probably experienced some version of this in our own careers, right?
Think about it. Have you ever worked under someone who micromanaged to the point of frustration, or encountered a leader who played favorites, undermining trust within the team?
Those behaviors create a toxic environment, and it's something that needs to be addressed.
Absolutely. The Army provides a framework for understanding and mitigating these counterproductive behaviors, which is valuable for leaders in any field. Now, when we shift our focus to how these branches approach leadership at different levels, we see some interesting distinctions.
The Army, they have that clear breakdown: direct, organizational, and strategic.
Right, and they give really tangible examples. Direct leadership, think of a squad leader in the field, making tactical decisions, motivating your team, ensuring their well-being. It's very hands-on, very immediate.
It's that frontline leadership we see in all sorts of fields: team leaders, project managers, people who are directly guiding and mentoring others.
Organizational leadership takes on a broader perspective. They're coordinating efforts across multiple teams, ensuring alignment with the overall mission, setting a vision for a larger unit or department. They're thinking more strategically, considering the bigger picture.
So like middle management department heads, folks who are responsible for a larger scope.
Exactly. And then there's strategic leadership operating at the highest echelons, setting the overall course, managing resources on a massive scale. They're thinking long-term, anticipating challenges, making decisions that impact the entire organization, even beyond.
Your CEOs, your generals, people whose decisions have far-reaching consequences.
Now, the Marines, while they recognize these different levels, their emphasis remains on the impact of the individual Marine leader, regardless of rank.
They have that example of Corporal Dakota Meyer receiving the Medal of Honor for his actions in Afghanistan.
It's a great example of how they empower every Marine to lead. It doesn't matter the position. If you see something that needs to be done, you step up and do it.
It's about initiative, courage, taking ownership.
And this approach is woven into their culture. They foster that sense of responsibility and leadership from the very beginning. They want every Marine to feel empowered to think critically, to make decisions.
It's a powerful approach, and it certainly contributes to their effectiveness.
Now, both branches place a heavy emphasis on building cohesion and esprit de corps. The Army talks about the importance of a shared identity, that sense of belonging to something larger than oneself.
They want soldiers to feel connected to the Army family, to the mission, to the country they're defending.
They emphasize the importance of shared hardships, pride in the unit's accomplishments, those experiences that bind them together.
The Marine Corps takes a similar approach, but they crank it up to 11.
They have that famous saying, "Where else should I be? I'm a United States Marine."
It really captures that deep sense of identity and commitment.
They put a heavy emphasis on their unique, transformative training, those intense shared experiences that forge a bond like no other.
They emphasize tradition, the history of the Corps, those symbols and rituals that reinforce their identity.
And they foster a culture of excellence, a drive to be the best, to live up to the legacy of those who came before them.
It's no wonder they have such strong esprit de corps. It's a product of their culture, their training, and their unwavering belief in the mission.
It's a really fascinating aspect of military leadership, and it's something that any organization can learn from.
It's about finding those ways to connect people, to create a shared sense of purpose, to build a team that's greater than the sum of its parts.
And it's about fostering that pride, that sense of belonging that makes people willing to go above and beyond.
Yeah. Now, we've talked a lot about leadership in the context of combat, but both the Army and Marine Corps emphasize that these principles are applicable to all aspects of military service.
They recognize that leadership isn't just about battlefield tactics. It's about leading people, managing resources, and accomplishing missions in all sorts of environments.
The Army talks about the importance of building a positive command climate, one that's characterized by trust, respect, and open communication.
They emphasize the need for leaders to be ethical role models, to set the example, and to create an environment where everyone feels valued and respected.
The Marines also stress the importance of leadership in all aspects of their service, from training to community engagement.
They believe that every Marine, regardless of rank, has the potential to lead and to make a positive impact.
They encourage initiative, they reward innovation, and they foster a culture where everyone feels empowered to contribute.
So it's not just about leading in combat, it's about leading in all aspects of life.
It's about applying those same principles of character, competence, and commitment to every situation you encounter.
It's about being a leader in your community, in your family, in your everyday interactions.
And that, I think, is one of the most important takeaways from our deep dive into military leadership. These lessons and principles, they're applicable to all of us, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Whether we're leading a team at work, managing a project, or simply trying to be better human beings.
Right.
These insights into character, competence, and commitment can help us navigate the challenges of life and make a positive impact.
And one of the things that's been really striking is how both the Army and Marines address the complexities of leadership in a world that's changing at warp speed.
It's fascinating, right? The Army, for instance, uses this phrase, operating in conditions of uncertainty and ambiguity. Sounds a lot like the world we live in today, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Things are changing so fast, and those old playbooks just don't cut it anymore.
Exactly. And they highlight several key challenges. One is the sheer speed of operations these days. Decisions have to be made faster. Information overload is constant.
Yeah.
And the pressure is immense. It's like the world is on fast forward,
Yeah.
and leaders have to keep up.
No kidding. And it's not just the pace, it's the interconnectedness of everything.
Right.
The Army also talks about the challenges of globalization,
Right.
understanding different cultures,
Yep.
building relationships across borders, navigating those complex geopolitical landscapes.
It requires a whole new set of skills and perspectives.
Yeah.
And then there's the rise of non-state actors.
Right.
We're not just dealing with traditional militaries anymore. You have terrorist organizations, insurgents, criminal networks,
Right.
groups that operate outside the rules.
Mm-hmm.
It makes the battlefield both literally and figuratively
Yeah.
much more complex.
So how do they even begin to prepare leaders for this kind of environment?
Well, in the face of all these challenges, both the Army and Marine Corps stress the importance of adaptability.
The Army talks about developing leaders who are comfortable with ambiguity, who can think critically and creatively.
You get it. They emphasize the need for flexibility, for being able to adjust plans on the fly,
Right.
and for learning from both successes and failures. It's about being able to improvise, think outside the box, and find solutions when the old ways don't work.
It seems like a huge shift from the traditional top-down command and control style of leadership.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
And it's reflected in this idea of mission command that runs through both sources. It's about giving subordinates the freedom to act, to make decisions based on the commander's intent, rather than waiting for specific orders.
Okay, so it's about trusting your team, empowering them to take ownership, recognizing that they might be closer to the situation and have a better understanding of what needs to be done.
Exactly. It recognizes that in today's fast-paced, complex world, you can't micromanage every decision.
Right.
You have to empower those on the front lines, foster initiative, encourage creativity, and trust your team to get the job done.
That's a lot of trust. And it makes me think about the importance of values.
Yeah.
How do those play into leading effectively in such unpredictable circumstances?
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Both the Army and Marine Corps are big on values-based leadership.
Right.
They recognize that when things are chaotic and uncertain, it's those core values that provide the guiding principles.
The Army has their 7 core values: loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, personal courage, and the Marines have their 3
Right.
honor, courage, commitment.
Yeah, both sets emphasize ethical conduct integrity,
Right.
putting the mission and the team first.
But it's not just about talking the talk,
Right.
right? These values are woven into the very fabric of these organizations. They're reinforced through training, through stories, through the actions of leaders at all levels.
And they hold each other accountable to those values. It's a powerful way to ensure that even in the heat of the moment, those core principles guide their actions. Now, I'm fascinated by the Marine Corps emphasis on the individual Marine's impact, regardless of rank.
Me too. It's so different from that traditional hierarchical view of leadership.
Right. They have this great quote, "Every Marine is a rifleman."
Right.
It captures that idea that every Marine, no matter their role or specialty, is a warrior first and foremost.
Right.
And they really push that idea of leadership at all levels. It's not about waiting for orders.
Right.
It's about taking initiative, seeing what needs to be done, and doing it.
Like that example of Corporal Dakota Meyer, who received the Medal of Honor.
Yeah.
He was a junior Marine, but he didn't hesitate to take charge during that ambush, repeatedly entering a kill zone to rescue his comrades. It's a powerful example of how they empower their people, how they instill that sense of responsibility and courage to act even in the most dangerous situations.
Exactly. And this emphasis on individual initiative is also reflected in their approach to training. They put Marines through incredibly challenging scenarios,
Right.
forcing them to think on their feet, to make decisions under pressure, to build that confidence and ability to adapt and lead when the situation demands it.
It's like they're saying, we trust you to figure it out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, both the Army and Marine Corps acknowledge the importance of physical fitness.
Right.
But the Marines, they really take it to another level.
Yeah.
It's almost a defining characteristic of the Marine Corps, that image of the physically fit, mentally tough Marine.
Right. They have their 4 pillars of fitness, mind, body, spirit, social, and they really emphasize that it's a holistic approach.
They believe that physical fitness is essential, not just for combat effectiveness, but for building resilience, mental toughness, and discipline. They have that saying, the more we sweat in peace, the less we bleed in war.
Right.
It captures their commitment to preparation, to pushing themselves to their limits.
And it's not just about brute strength. They emphasize agility, endurance, and functional fitness, the ability to actually perform the tasks required in combat.
They recognize that physical fitness is a foundation for everything else. It builds confidence, it strengthens resolve, and it creates a sense of shared hardship that binds Marines together.
It's interesting how the physical and the mental are so interconnected in their approach. And honestly, this emphasis on physical fitness has benefits that extend far beyond the battlefield. It's good for our health, it reduces stress, it improves our mood, and it builds discipline and self-esteem.
Absolutely. So even if we're not aspiring Marines, we can all learn from their approach. We can find ways to challenge ourselves physically, to push our limits, and to reap the rewards of a healthy, active lifestyle.
Well, it's been an incredible journey exploring the depths of military leadership. We've covered so much from core values to leadership styles, from esprit de corps to the importance of adaptability and resilience.
We've seen how these principles are applied in the most demanding environments.
Right.
And we've discovered insights that are relevant to all of us, regardless of our field or profession.
So as you go back to your own world, your own challenges, I encourage you to reflect on what we've discussed, what resonates with you, what can you apply to your own life, your own work. Think about those core values, those leadership styles, those strategies for building resilience and fostering teamwork. How can you incorporate them into your own approach?
And remember, leadership is a journey, not a destination. There's always more to learn more, to grow more ways to become a more effective, more inspiring leader.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into military leadership. Until next time, keep learning, keep leading, and keep pushing yourselves to be the best why you can be.